She was just a girl when her country started slipping away. India was changing fast, falling under the grip of a foreign power. But instead of watching from the sidelines, she rose, sword in hand, courage in her heart, and fire in her soul. They called her Rani Lakshmibai, but history remembers her as the Queen of Jhansi, a woman who led armies, defied an empire, and inspired a nation. Before she was a queen, she was just Manikarnika, a lively, curious girl born in 1828 in the city of Varanasi. Her family was Marathi Brahmin, and from a young age, she stood out. While most girls were taught to cook, clean, and stay quiet, Manikarnika was learning how to read, ride horses, and wield weapons. She trained in sword fighting, archery, and martial arts. Her father worked in the court of a nobleman, so she grew up surrounded by politics, warriors, and strategy. She soaked it all in. People called her Manu as a nickname, but there was nothing small about her spirit. Even as a child, she asked bold questions. Why couldn't girls fight like boys? Why were women always told to stay inside? She didn't just dream of freedom, she trained for it. At 14, she was married to the Maharaja of Jhansi, Gangadhar Rao, and became Rani Lakshmibai, Queen of Jhansi. At first, life in the palace was calm. She learned court rituals, helped make decisions, and even joined the Maharaja in political matters. They had a child, but he died young. Heartbroken, the couple adopted a son named Damodar Rao and named him heir to the throne. Then everything started to fall apart. By now, the British East India Company had taken control of huge parts of India. They had their own army, their own rules, and a hunger for more land. One of those rules was the doctrine of lapse. It said that if a ruler died without a biological son, the British could take over the kingdom, no questions asked. So when the Maharaja died in 1853, the British said Jhansi no longer had a rightful ruler. They refused to recognize Damodar Rao as the next king. They told Rani Lakshmibai to step aside, to move out of the palace, to give up everything, but she didn't. Her answer was loud and clear: I will not give up my Jhansi. They didn't see her as a threat. To them, she was just a young widow with no army, no husband, no power, but they didn't know who they were dealing with. Rani Lakshmibai put on her armor, gathered loyal soldiers, trained women to fight, and prepared her city for war. And then, in 1857, the first sparks of a massive rebellion lit across India. It started with Indian soldiers, called sepoys, rising up against British commanders. Cities across the country began to burn. People were done being ruled, done being disrespected, done being silenced. The Indian Rebellion of 1857, also called the First War of Independence, had begun. And Rani Lakshmibai was ready. When British troops marched toward Jhansi, expecting an easy takeover, they were met with walls fortified, cannons loaded, and a queen who stood at the front of her army. She didn't hide behind palace doors. She rode on horseback into battle, with her adopted son tied to her back. Her sword flashed under the sun. Her voice echoed across the battlefield. People who saw her said she rode like a warrior from legend, dressed in red, riding a black horse, with fire in her eyes. Her presence alone gave courage to those around her. Under her command, men and women fought side by side, and for a time, they held the British off. But the enemy was relentless. The British returned with a larger army. They surrounded Jhansi and launched a brutal attack. For 2 weeks, the city held strong. Rani Lakshmibai moved from wall to wall, encouraging her soldiers, fighting when needed, never letting her people give up. But the enemy broke through. The city was falling. She didn't surrender. Instead, in the dead of night, she made a daring escape. With her son tied to her back, she leapt from the fort's high walls on horseback and rode away through the shadows. It wasn't just an escape. It was a promise. The fight wasn't over. She traveled to nearby cities, gathering more troops, joining other rebel leaders. In Gwalior, she led another charge against the British. The battle was fierce. The queen was everywhere, riding through smoke, shouting orders, facing bullets and blades without flinching. She knew the risks. She knew the enemy was stronger, but she also knew something bigger was at stake: freedom. On June 18, 1858, during the Battle of Gwalior, Rani Lakshmibai was shot and killed. She was only 29 years old. The British burned her body to prevent her supporters from building a shrine. They wanted to erase her, but it didn't work. Because legends don't die in fire. They rise from it. Rani Lakshmibai became a symbol, not just of rebellion, but of what a woman could be when she chose not to obey. Her courage inspired poets, freedom fighters, and generations of girls. Even British officers who fought against her admitted she was one of the bravest leaders they had ever faced. She didn't lead with fear. She led with heart. She didn't beg for mercy. She demanded respect. She wasn't born into power. She built it with every choice she made. Today, in India, her name is everywhere: schools, roads, stamps, statues. Songs are still sung about her. And every time someone says, "Khub ladi mardani, wo to Jhansi wali Rani thi," they're remembering that fearless queen who refused to be small. She didn't wait for permission. She defended what was hers. She stood her ground. She did it.